All right, the rise of African MMA fighters across the globe speaks of the healthy standing that the sport finds itself in on the continent. At one stage, talks of UFC coming to Africa showed greater interest from fighting fans on the mother continent. Well, joining me to unpack this is someone whose years of experience in the sport stretches decades, and that is none other than EFC Worldwide President Cairo Howarth. Good afternoon, Cairo. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks, and yourself. Great to be here.
Awesome. Always great to talk mixed martial arts. Let's speak in particular what the major contributing factor is to the rise of African MMA fighters, especially across the globe. They're performing so well. Cairo.
It's really that we have now been doing the sport here for over a decade. It's 14 years of EFC. So you're seeing athletes that came to us when they were 19 years old, now hitting their kind of prime. And that's what you're seeing with the likes of like Dricus du Plessis, who's now hitting his prime years from an athlete point of view. He's got the experience which he got competing at EFC, and now he's competing at the UFC and taking heads on the biggest stage in the world.
Cairo, what has been your additional observation of, the fighters from Africa in particular? Because the numbers are not lying. The numbers are saying the audience and participants is growing, which means that the interest from the sports in Africa is going through an alarming high level right now.
It's absolutely booming. We see it on every metric that we've got, from our social media, from a television point of view, interest at live events, through to the athletes themselves, like you say, and from a participation point of view. So the sport has never been bigger than it is now, but every single day it's just growing and growing. It just again comes back to the level of athlete that's coming out of Africa, the local stars that people can follow and get behind and tell their stories and follow their stories. And it's really been taking off a lot. And I think the next couple of years is going to get even greater for us.
I mean, a trip down memory lane. I don't think anyone else on the continent has been able to, put on African talent. And I think the EFC has always been like an international gateway to the UFC. But I've had so many interviews with you, and I know you don't like being compared to in that sense. But what's been the secrets to making this work?
Arthur, we laugh about it, but that's what we are. That's what EFC is. It's a African feeder system to the UFC, and we embrace that. We love it. We love the fact that the athletes can come and compete at EFC and then go on to compete at the UFC, similar to a footballer playing at the PSL or an African league and then going to the Premier League. That's the dream. And if you're a mixed martial artist anywhere in the globe, you want to fight at the UFC, and competing at EFC is the perfect way to get there. You get the experience, you get looked after well, we have great medical, great promotion, we promote them well, we get their names out there, they have high-level competition, they get seen by the UFC, they get signed there, and then you get the likes of the Dricus and the Cameron going on there and now fighting for world titles.
Let's speak about Timba Gorimbo. He's recently come out to say, hey, look, he had some financial issues. There's a gym, apparently, that he was running in South Africa, and he ran out of finances. Now, that's the reality of a lot of fighters coming from Africa. How do you tackle those issues? How do you tackle those challenges? And why is it going overseas? Why does it seem like that's the solution and not finding a resolution right here?
So I think it's not just in mixed martial arts or boxing or combat sports, it's in most sports. If you look at athletes across the board, there's only a certain amount of sports where the premium athletes earn a lot of money. Most other sports they don't. But it's certainly rising. The opportunity for mixed martial artists to earn good money is there. Timba's a specific case. He's chosen to now go and train and live in America because that's the opportunity that he believes is best for his family. But you've got the likes of Dricus and Cameron, who are living here, training here. They just fly into Vegas or wherever it is for their fight. They fly in a week before they compete, and they fly straight back again, and they have their full camps here. So it's certainly not to say there's a right or wrong. Everyone's personal situation is different. So Timba's an awesome guy, and hopefully he has made the right move for his family, for his life. We assume he has, and that's fantastic. But for the likes of Dricus, he says openly that he never wants to leave here. He wants to stay here and compete from here as a South African living and training in South Africa.
I mean, Cairo, at one stage, the UFC had 3 world African champions. Dricus is in line to become the next champion. He's going to be obviously taking on Israel Adesanya. You've known Dricus from I don't know how many years now. Speak to us about his personality, his fighting spirit, and just how much success we can expect in the near future.
I think what was awesome about Dricus, and apparent from day one, he walked into the first time he competed at EFC, He was literally 19 years old, and he finished his first bout, and he was also, undercard, first fight, and he finished and went to the press conference afterwards in a suit and a tie, and he was all dressed, and half of the other guys and girls were, like in their fight gear. And he said, and someone made a comment to him like, "Oh, well, are you dressing in a suit? Who are you trying to impress or something?" And he said, "I'm going to be a world champion one day. I'm behaving like a world champion today. I'm going to act like one. I'm going to train like one. I'm going to be one in every aspect of my life today, and that's what I'm going to be." So he had that in his mind from then, and he's been acting and training and behaving like a world champion since he was a teenager.
Wow. I mean, let's also talk about the young gun Cameron Simon, who's also part of this conversation, one of the fighters who's on the rise and someone who is definitely a fighter to look out for in the future. I want us to talk about how South Africa is a maker for combat sports experts, and how we can actually make the sport of mixed martial arts greater than what it is. Where else do we just need to pull in the ropes to make this a success?
I actually think we don't need to change anything. I think Cameron's a perfect example of what's to come. Cameron, he came to his first live EFC to watch when he was 8 years old.
Wow.
So he went to the first EFC we had at Carnival City when he was 8 years old. He watched Soldier Boy competing. He said, "I want to do that." Started training with Dricus from when he was about 10, 11 years old. And when he turned 18, he started fighting for us. Undefeated, became our champion, and got signed to the UFC as the youngest athlete ever to be signed to the UFC on their roster in history.
That's crazy.
We now, so we're seeing the generation of people who grew up, of athletes who grew up training mixed martial arts from when they were 10 years old. That's what Cameron is a product of, and that's what you're now seeing coming through the ranks. So up until now, globally, on the global stage, they've had that in America and Brazil and Europe. Those athletes have been training since they were kids, whereas ours haven't been until now. We have that generation that have been training since they're kids. So we don't actually have to change anything. It's just been a process, a bit of time to get to this time where we are today, where we have the level of athletes coming through.
I mean, that's such a success story, but now some are also speaking about the survival of mixed martial arts versus boxing. What can you say about that? Some saying that mixed martial art is not going to outlive boxing?
I don't know why anyone would say that. There's space for both. I watch both, so there's plenty combat sport fans that love watching boxing and mixed martial arts. Some will only watch one or the other. That doesn't really matter. The point is there's more than enough of an audience. They estimate the global mixed martial arts audience to be in excess of 700 million people today. Next year it's going to be more. It's still one of the fastest growing sports on the planet, and there's more than enough space for people to like boxing and watch boxing and have mixed martial arts as well.
Fantastic. It's the eve of EFC 105. The weigh-ins took place today. What did you make of it? And the sports fans, of course, are anticipating EFC 105 tomorrow.
Oh, it was awesome. We had quite a late-minute change. The main event, Shannon Van Tonder got a staph infection, so to pull off the card, that was literally this weekend fighting for a title. But we've got the depth of talent that we have. We have Zulu stepping up. He's changed his name to King Shaka Zulu he announced today, which is cool. So he stepped in, obviously a former champion,
yes.
Now fighting to reclaim the belt that he's got. He trains out of CIT with Dricus and Cameron, so he's fighting to take the belt that Cameron vacated. So we've got an epic title fight on our hands for tomorrow. I love watching Zulu in action, but he's got a tough fight ahead of him, so it's a really exciting fight card.
Why is he one of your favorites? I know that he might be one of your favorites. I don't want to cause any trouble and say that he's your favorite and the whole of EFC comes from me, but what's special about his fighting?
He's just exciting to watch.
Yeah.
You're never going to see a boring fight with Zulu competing. He's throwing elbows and flying knees and head kicks, and he never gives up, and he fights to hurt the opponent. He's cutting them, and he's brutal. So I love watching him. Plus, he's a great guy. Again, I have history with him. I've known him for well over 10 years now. But he's a fantastic athlete. We have so many great athletes on our roster, so many cool stories. There's so many cool guys and girls that do this sport and really love what they do. So it's a real honor and a pleasure to watch them.
Cairo Howarth, always great to talk to you. Mixed martial arts, that's the EFC worldwide president, just speaking to us about the rise of African MMA stars globally, and of course just coming at the back of Dricus du Plessis' victory against Robert Whittaker. And next up for Dricus du Plessis is the last style bender, Israel Adesanya.